Basically, I'm a programmer. Okay, so we'll just stop there. Then I support programmers to become better programmers. That is that is some small thing about me till now, which I am doing stuff. Okay, so what we are going to talk in this session is the programming paradigms in Python. It has this functional programming, it has a reactive programming. These two things hasn't been much talked about because Python itself means simplicity. So most of the libraries has been written in Python by keeping only thing in mind. We could able to get more developers in it, and then which because of the one single reason, it's simplicity. That is the only reason. Like all the things, just consider a desktop application, a Raspberry Pi, uh, data science, artificial intelligence, and then Selenium, web application, and mobile. Okay, mobile is not there unfortunately as of till now. So most of the stuff has been Python has been almost across everywhere. Okay, so and what Python the owners has started doing is they just thought like we need to make sure whatever things are coming to us, we just want to make it adapt. So they have done most stuff inside it. If you look into when they started in 90s and then till now, almost 25 years plus, Python has been getting very strong in all the areas. And then most of the people who were there, either they are in Java or Scala or something, they cannot neglect the role of Python, what it is going to play now, also for the future. So that is one thing I thought with Python. I'm sure most of the people here are from data science background. That is what uh, Nikhil has informed me sometime back. Okay, so let me say about this session how we are going to formulate. The first session we are going to cover these topics like we'll be looking into programming paradigms and then functional programming. What is functional programming? Why should we need to adapt it? And how should we need to do it? So that is one thing. And then what are all the elements in Python which does support functional programming? Either it might be a lambda, filter, map, reduce, and partials, higher order function. Okay, so this is what we are going to see in today's session. And following next week, we'll be doing starting with reactive programming. And the second session and third session is going to be totally reactive. I actually thought like we need to start with reactive programming, but unfortunately, what happened is I don't know about the capability of each and every audience here. So I thought I need to go with functional programming and the existing things what Python provides and what has been lagging, and then we will go with this RX Python. So before getting into this session, this is what I'm going to teach and we are going to discuss in this session. So I would like each and every one of you just give me something like what do you expect out of this session? Given this condition, this is what we are going to do. What do you expect out of this session? Can you just type it there so that I can make a note? I will try to cover if that is in the scope of it. If it is not, I will try to cover at least in the upcoming session, provided it was related only with functional and reactive programming. Yeah, okay. Can you just type it there? Object-oriented programming. Okay, unfortunately, we are not going to cover it. We believe that you are already capable enough in object-oriented programming with Python. Optimizing a Python code. Introduction to functional programming and SMS. Yes, that's right. We are going to do optimizing a Python code. Optimization and then clear code are totally different. Okay, optimization is something which is related with so much of performance. Well, clear code is something related with how you are going to do the abstraction, how you are going to split those stuff. You can achieve both, but in order to achieve the so-called performance optimization, your code needs to be, is what we are going to talk. Complete refresher for kind of solid best programming Python coding. By that. Introduction to functional programming, yes. Complete refresher, okay, I'll do that. Typical functional usages, okay. I'm new to Python, 1 year using it now. I need this session to open me on this can help me with big data machine learning. How can this help them? Okay, so I'm unfortunately I'm never data processing machine learning, IoT data analysis guy. I'm just a programmer who has been in Python for almost 4 to 8 years. Sorry, 4 to 5 years. Basically, my Python thing is actually web application and then functional and reactive programming. I can just help you in certain aspects, and it is totally up to you whether how you could able to use it in data analysis or data processing and all this stuff, because we do have that. Writing short and concise code in Python, yeah, that is what exactly we are going to do. Some good libraries. We are not going to do so much in libraries. We are restricting with functional and reactive programming. That's where our core intent of the session. We'll be using the default built-in things for functional programming in Python initially, and after that we will be moving only dependent on one library, which is Rx. We will also be doing something similar with this what's that, API on getting from some other system, RESTful API calls, but that is not a big thing actually. So unfortunately, we can able to do it only one or two. Okay, iterator and decorator. Okay, so the problem with iterator and decorator is it was totally been meant as functional programming thing. From Python has specified that iterator is the only thing which we are giving that as part of functional programming, but it was more than that. We will discuss that, but we won't be deep diving into iterator and decorator, but we will see. Like data scientists, we work with huge data, so need, yeah, that is we are going to do. We are going to say like programming techniques which runs faster. That is thing which is going to be crucial for ML engineers and developers in future. We cannot specify that for ML engineers or web developers or something. It is just for developers. With functional programming in place, do we still need to? Yes, yes, absolutely yes. It is just a type actually. Okay, so you don't have to get accustomed with the programming thing. The reason why I'm saying is Python is never an object-oriented language or never a functional language. Python is a typical scripting language, similar to what shell script is provided, but it has a huge flavor in it, and then which is so simple, and then the elegance lies in its simplicity. And then they have made object-oriented on top of it, and then with the object-oriented, they are enabling functional programming on top of it. So it's nothing like we are going to remove something or we are going to apply each and everything else. Each and everything will complement, and then it is totally up to you whether to decide where should you need to use. But I can just I'm just going to be partial for functional programming object. But yeah, object oriented you can. Can you tell the best Python guidelines with respect to framework like Flask, Django, etc.? So if you look into the frameworks, libraries, and all the other stuff, if you look into that, if you just could able to apply just some thought over it, some 1 hour or 2 hour in it, you could able to understand what the niche behind each and every thing. Unfortunately, we are not going to cover like what is better in Flask or what is better in Django. But based on my experience, I can able to date and time conversion and parsing. Okay? I haven't had that, but yeah, I will try to do that. I will try to do that. Note it down. Modular coding and how do we think in the way we modularizing it? Yeah, we are going to cover it, Karthik. Yeah, that's fine. We are top of it. Decorators and generators with best practices. We are going to have one upper hand over the decorators and generators. Since I could able to see that questions are coming over it, I will try to get it covered sometime later. Okay, if there is an interest or not. Your voice is not clearly audible. Okay, is it okay now or it's so less? Okay. Okay, fine. Yeah. Okay, so and one more thing actually, it's not like I'm just going to write everything and I'm going to work on everything and then you need to keep your question at last. Whenever if you feel something, if you believe that something is not making sense or something doesn't really have so much of impact or you couldn't able to understand it, you are free to type it in the chat. Okay, so I will always keep this chat window open. I try to whenever I see, I will try to answer it immediately, because I believe there is always a possibility that the thoughts might come only if I am going to say some particular things. I don't want that to stop it. Can you also cover the best PEP guidelines so that our code doesn't flag an issue in SonarQube during scanning? Okay, so PEP8 guidelines, you can see that actually, and then it was just SonarQube, right? So don't work for something SonarQube is going to say. Just work like, what do you believe it is a good code? Okay. PEP8 guidelines are there, and then they do have these things like Lambda should not be having was that Lambda should never be assigned as a variable. Okay, but functional programming says like variables should not be differentiated with functions. I guess the PEP8 they would have thought they might, the reason they might have given that guideline is, I guess people are finding so hard to write functions which is one-liner. I totally understand that, because Python is never meant for like hardcore programmers. It is meant for some people who want to do simplicity. But yeah, I have certain differentiation with PEP8 guidelines only at that particular point. Apart from that, I'm good. And then never work for the SonarQube. Always work for yourself. Always work for implementing the business what it was, right? Even SonarQube is going to give you an issue. Okay, it's fine actually, because we have done something for business. So how can you ensure like it is working for business? You are a programmer, and then whenever if you show a code to a non-programmer or a programmer, he should able to understand how the data has been flowing, how things are happening. You might not able to understand what is NumPy is doing, what is MapReduce is doing, and all this stuff, but he should able to understand it. Then we have written really a good program. Yeah, so this for Sonar. Create function, generate, plot, grab. Okay, so we are not going to do that unfortunately, because we are not going to use Jupyter. We are be using PyCharm IDE for typical function. You can do that in your Jupyter as well. Give some guidelines how to debug programs written using functional style. Okay, yeah. So there is one thing you need to understand actually. The debugging is a concept which has been arrived when the unit test has not been there. Okay. During 1950s, there is nothing called unit test. Each and everything will be need to be identifying manually and then going it. But now you can see Python itself has its own inbuilt unit test framework, where you should start writing tests and then you need to start writing the code. Okay. So once you have this unit tests, which has been the driving factor of your source code design, it will never be, you will never ever have an option to debug it. Only thing is, if you believe there is an issue, if some issue is going to happen, I'm sure you might have logs, what it's doing. So have the function, write a test case, and then just do it. Logging guidelines, it is totally up to organization to decide what do you want. So typically the guidelines would be like, whenever if you are going to have a write operation, it needs to be logged obviously, and if there is any audit, you need to do it. Apart from that, I believe I don't think a need that you need to log each and everything, whatever it is. So if there is a write operation, if there is an update operation, delete operation, you always need to log it. Start, and then you need to end, and then you are logging it. And then it needs to follow certain things like what is the thread you are doing. I believe it is there by default actually. Worry so much. Logging guidelines. Just a session. I guess we can continue with your session. Question can be taken Q&A window later for saving time. Could you please start with the agenda? Yeah, no issues. The reason why I am spending this much time is we just want to understand what is the expectation of the team. Okay. Never like we don't want to start something else which is totally against that. Fine. So yeah, I think we have certain things we have added, and then I'll say like iterators and generators. Unfortunately not, Shahir. We will get back to that, okay? Because people have started like, we want that schedule to be running. Do it, and then we'll, as these kind of inclusion and all the things needs to be coming as separate stuff. We'll talk about it. But now just focus on what has been happening, and then whenever if you have issues on each and every aspect, just yes. Thank you. So the session is going to be like a two-way. One is actually I'm going to start these presentation, and then there is always also going to be coding. Okay, so I'll be coding, and then coming back into PowerPoint. So the first thing is history of functional programming. Okay, so where it all begins. So these two guys, Alan Turing, Alonzo Church. Okay, Alonzo Church is a professor where one of his bright student is Alan Turing. Okay, and then they both worked together in Princeton University. In Princeton University, for a PhD thesis, Alan Turing has been a student for Alonzo Church. As you can see, like, right, all your teachers, whenever, even though if you have your colleges and wherever you are going there, mostly these brilliant students always outperform their masters. You can always see that actually. And then okay, so I am keeping the chat window open just like that. The questions, whatever the questions which has been related with the PPT. So don't ask this question. This will be definitely discussing your PPT recording session, all this stuff. Please make sure the chat includes only the question which is related to the topic which I am speaking. So you can always see that the students often outperform their masters. So Alan Turing obviously outperformed. And then I'm sure most people would have known what Alan Turing is, right? You would have heard Turing machines, and he is the only reason, he's one of the main reason we all have this system. And then most of the system, hard disk, and how things have been happening, it's all based on Turing principle. Okay, it was based on Turing machine. So what Turing machine says, we don't want to go into deep like exactly how Turing machine, because that is not the intent of the session. The intent of the session is the Turing machine, what it will do is it will just uses states. It will use state for computation. For example, if they want to have a variable, the variable will be replaced. For example, each and every information, A would be specifying it to 1, and then the same A would be changed into. So the variable will keep on being incrementing. So this computation has been called finite state machine, and then this has been part of Alan Turing's invention. Those days it used to be only like mathematical computation has been a very big thing those days, just like what AI is today. So whoever there work on mathematical computation, they thought that they are really doing some big thing. So mathematical computation, Alan Turing has also been working also along with Alonzo Church, his master, who also used to work, while Alan Turing discovered something called finite state machine, and his master has discovered something called dark. So these are all just for doing the computation. By the computation in the sense mathematical computation, there is no machine, but they are that is happening in a separate way. But they want how this calculation needs to be performed. If you look into what Alan Turing has been doing, he would be just like a equal to a plus 1, which is like updating these so-called variables by changing the state of variable. So that is what Alan Turing's finite state machine. I'm just giving you an example here. Don't get too much into it. But while Alan Turing discovery is, whenever some operation needs to be performed, needs to be going towards a function, and then that particular function should produce an output which will be returned. Those things has been called lambda. So it was normally a black box. Don't know what is actually inside. It might be always small. And then if you want to increment a value, the lambda will take the input and then it will increment the value and then it will provide it back. So it was like abstraction, so much abstraction in it, and then composing all the abstraction together to what is required at the final stage. So that is what lambda calculus is all about. Okay, and then these things can be interchangeable. Whatever function, whatever lambda based calculus can be doing, it can be done with what Turing machine does, and whatever Turing based machine can doing, it can be done in lambda calculus as well. So it can be converted either way. And this is okay, this is just a simple expression. It can be anything. Okay, so it did not be like anything. It is just like a typical function. But you might be thinking, actually, why we already have functions in it. Does it also mean lambda calculus? Okay, it might or might not be. We will come back to that in upcoming slides. We will how it is or how it is. He decoded German signals in World War II. Yeah, that's right. Okay, yeah, we will give you the PPT. Don't worry. Okay, right. Yeah, I will try to record the session. Okay, fine. So, and then the next thing. So you have seen the lambda calculus. I thought you need to do some more differentiation on typical functions versus lambda calculation function. So they will whenever if you are going to communicate with the function, what will you be calling that procedure? You'll be saying like calling the function, right? How many of you said call that function, call that function, call that function? Call that function so that it will return certain value. Call that function so that it will return some value. So that is what as programmers mostly has been used to doing. But that is a different case in mathematics. In math, it will be like apply function. Okay, so there is nothing called calling a function. Apply a function over a set of value. Even if it is a single value, apply the function and get an output. Even if it is a group of value, apply the function and get output. So this function has been called, is part of lambda calculus, and based on this computation would be arriving. Okay, it's not just like I'm just giving you an abstract level here. I'm not giving you an exact thing how lambda calculus works, because that is totally outside the scope of this presentation. But at least you might have certain understanding now about lambda calculus. So any questions here? Any questions are good? Can we go? I am not receiving anything in chat. Okay, fine. Right. Good. We will go for the next thing. It looks 2x. It looks 2x. Yes, that's right. The function is actually 2x. Yeah, right. Okay, and our functional programming has been heavily influenced by lambda calculus. Okay, and then what happened is this guy, what's often have this habit of forgetting. Alan Turing went on creating machines, but unfortunately, our Alonzo Church couldn't able to do anything related with computation. But he has got very ardent followers after that who take these principles, these lambda calculus principle, started applying in 1950s. They started, okay, fine, we will do it. We don't want to use something called state, rather we will use functions, and then we will do all these together. Okay, so the first programming language with functional programming has been called Lisp. How many of you heard a language called Lisp? Okay, yeah. So yeah, heard. Yeah, that's fine. Actually, no one. I haven't wrote down it. Yeah, that's almost a very new language. Before that, there used to be Fortran. Okay, I'm sure some of you might have looked into that in college. Yeah, I think Fortran is still have a relevant thing. Yeah, both use good. Fortran is still a relevant thing actually, and being used across the mission critical applications. You can see that Fortran is being still used. Even in ISRO, they have been using it. But that's fine. We will come back to this functional programming Lisp. Okay, so that guy, whoever created that Lisp programming language, took the concept from lambda calculus and started using it. And then okay, fine, we will do like a variable, whatever being initialized should never be changed. Rather, it can be applied to a function and then it can get back a value, which means every data which is being there is almost fine. You cannot change the value of any variable, but you can create new instances. You are supposed to create new instances. So what will happen is the purpose of variable will be diminished. Okay, so whenever if you believe a variable can only be used once, what is going to happen? So that is what immutability, right? You can only initialize it once. What is the point in having variable again and again? Nothing. So it will be having like only functions. So these functions are the first class citizens there. There is nothing a concept called variable. These are all function references. Functions will be referenced here, and then it will be applied there, and then another function will be referenced there, and then it will. So everything will be like bunch of functions which is doing one good job. But there will never be any variable updation. The variable updation in the sense, not just a variable, it is also like it will not have any side effects. By side effects, it means it will not touch the file system, it will not look into the clock, it will not look into the database, or it will not connect to an API, it will not do anything. Only all the business function you can able to do with Lisp. So that is what it used to be earlier. And then, but if you look into what we have been doing normally, so if you are going to be an organization, I'm there, okay, I went to my organization and I am saying actually, see, I want to be more functional. I like Alan Church rather than Alan Turing. I want to start working like pure functions, and then there should not be anything called variables. I just need to do it. They will fire you immediately. For very long time, you have been working only with one thing, which is these side effects. These side effects might be a database. You might be connecting data, fetching data from database, and then you might be transferring. That is a business logic. But again, you would be writing to some other system. Okay, either it might be a database, or either it might be a file system, or either it might be giving back to an API. So our most job would be like working for side effects. Okay, so that is a different case. But if you look there, there are libraries which can do that. But the core idea inside is purely technical. Apart from reading and writing to some other external systems, what we are going to do inside is totally functional programming. So client will never care, and he doesn't need anything about whether you are going to do it with functional way or object oriented or any other imperative way. He want everything to be saved and secured, and then he want the delivery needs to be very much good and all the other stuff. But if you are going to leave a code as it is, and then if the code has been transformed and it has been given to another set of developers whenever they are going to come, they will really appreciate for using functional programming. Okay, we will see that how. Okay, we will see that how in up. We will start what functional. Okay, so as you see, it will, as I said, it will treat each and every variable as a computation. It is actually a function. It is a small function, because there is nothing, there is not a concept called variables, because once a variable has been initialized, it is never going to be updated or something. So it is always like function definition, increment a function, and then print a value. That is not functional programming. Whenever if you print it, it is a side effect. Okay, so whatever logic which you are going to write inside your code, it is part of functional programming, while other things are definitely not. This is one thing. And then eliminate side effects. So whenever if a function, if a lambda calculus function or a function which you are trying to build as part of functional programming, it should not use any other thing, or it should never update or delete or any other additional global things. It should just take care of what the data is. It can try to perform computations on what the data has been received. Either it can be an incremental, or either it can be like calculating the calculating the distance between the sun and the earth by utilizing how this utilizing some other way. I don't know, some trigonometry things. And then these kind of calculations, it is absolutely fine, but you should never connect to any database. You should never connect to println, or you should never do anything else. Only then it was functional programming, unfortunately. Okay, treats data as being immutable, so which means I'm not updating any variable which is inside as well. So whenever if I'm going to have that, I should not I can declare a variable, but I cannot update the variable. So it is, expressions have referential transparency. So the lambda things, okay, lambda things are the functions which you are going to do. It can be available, actually it needs to be transparent as it is, so that it needs to specify what it was actually doing. And then one more thing is it can take function as an argument, and also it can return functions. So even you can pass a function as an argument towards inside, and then you can return a function backwards as well. So this is all part of functional programming. Can you please elaborate on side effects? Okay, yeah, that's a good thing. We will do it. We'll open my PyCharm. You can see in a typical way, whenever if you have been asked developing a good system, developing a good trade system, and then uh, so we open a new program, referential transparency. We will look into that. Okay, I'm not using any Jupyter, which you have always been working on. We are going to use a typical PyCharm for our typical way. Okay, so I have a method. Okay, I'm writing a method called CanDrive. It will accept a parameter called age, and then it will return a value true or false. And then let me write a test. Yes. Okay, how many of you write unit tests? Oh, good. Okay, fine. We should always write unit tests. You never go for main method at all. It's a good thing. That's the main reason actually Jupyter has been arrived. So you can just look into that REPL and then you can do things. Self dot. What happened to me? I can put assets. Okay, can drive of 12 should be returning false. Okay, this is what write the test. Okay, so for these people, okay, so what do you want? Is there a shortcut? Yeah, it is a shortcut. Whenever if you go there, type alt insert, okay, it will generate something, or right click and then generate test. So it will create the same file and it will have the self dot. There is asset false, asset true, and then asset equal, all the stuff. That is enough actually. You need to have so much of stuff, but there are so much of stuff you can learn, and we can have those kind of sessions as separate thing. Okay, can you also that shortcut that you're using? Okay, fine, yeah. Okay, so another shortcut is it will say like that red color thing. Press Alt Enter. Okay, Alt Enter. What it will do is it will try to ask like, okay, import main dot can drive. Then I will. Then self dot asset false. And then either you can click this and then call run unit tests, or you can call Control Shift F10. So it will pass, okay, because we know that it is. And then you can see this particular method doesn't have any conditions apart from what it was doing, which means the value or the variable is never going to be changed by someone else. If I'm going to say like something like maximum equal to, I'm going to use this one, okay, then I'm going to rerun the same test case. So rerunning the same test case is I think Control F5. So rerun the past thing. So that is Control F5. Or else you need to go there and then click this, and then instead of that you can go for Control F5. So this time it has a side effect because it is referring some variable which can be changed. We don't know when it is going to happen. If this test is going to be, should be always, if it is assert false, it needs to be assert false on whatever condition or however condition. And this logic of can drive can be determined only by the can drive method, which means the lambda should own what needs to be right or what needs to be wrong, not by someone else. For example, this test is assert false, right? So if I am going to change this so-called variable here, and add a control F5, I might get a test failure. It will say like assert is true, which means the determination of the logic should be, determined based on the input, not by some external factors. These external factors are called side effects. Okay, clear was Gaurav Acha. Thank you. Okay, so referential transparency. Okay, so referential transparency is something you can make use of the existing thing and then you can combine it all together. Okay. We will see that referential transparency normally by invoking multiple pure functions. The implication is actually like composing multiple functions all together. Whenever if you compose multiple function all together, there might be a possibility it might fail you. If you are going to do in a typical or any imperative language, there might be a chance it might fail. But in functional programming or functional, if you are following functional programming all the way, these methods will be transparent to each other. They will not give you some extraordinary work sometimes. For example, if anyone going to call can drive, it is going to be always if anything more than 18, it is going to return always true. It's never going to be like morning 8 a.m. it will return false and in afternoon it is going to return true. It is always the same thing. So because of that thing, what side effect free, what you can do is you can honestly make use of these functions and then compose together and then make use of. So that is what referential transparency is. Why it failed? Because I have changed this maximum age to 9 here. Okay, so that is the reason it has failed. I should not be doing it. And then whenever if you want to remove a variable, use Control Alt N or select refactor. That is inline variable. Okay, so this is how things should be. The lambda should be generating the what the logical value is. It needs to be the one who is determining, and you can happily say that regardless of time, regardless of do, whenever if I am going to call him, he is going to give me the right answer. Whenever if I am going to call him 21, he is going to return always true. Whenever if I am going to give him 17, it is going to return always false. Is what okay, so fine, but okay, I think okay, we will go back to the percentage. Okay, functions can take function and then function as results, arguments. We will see that. Okay, we will see that later. Actually doing the coding stuff now. Okay, so what does this code does? Squares which number? Is it squaring the number or append double of the list in another list? List is multiplied by 2 for each element. Okay, I think everyone has read the previous PowerPoint slide. That's really good thing. Doubling the list, yeah, that's right. Okay, so how long it took for you to read this code? Not declared, yeah, we have purposefully mentioned like not declared values. The only reason is we want you to give some time for thinking. Okay, so I'm going to give another problem here. Then see when I understand that it is O(n). Okay. So how long this is going to take you to understand what it was? Second. Okay, only thing is you need to know what map does. That is a different case, but you can look into the same thing. It is the same program, whatever we have write it here. It is the same program, right? Results equal to, and then v invals result dot append, and then return result. The same thing. I'm just mapping these values by a function called multiply by 2. You don't know what it was, but I can just specify that there. Multiply by 2 equal lambda x colon x into 2, but it can also be def. Okay, so because I guess Python people don't want this lambda to be declared as a variable, you can say like def multiply by 2 and then x return x into. Okay, so let's code more power. Yeah, apart from power, normally you will be getting praise from your managers for doing some great work, and then managers, clients, and then stakeholders, everyone would be always saying good, good, great, great. And then if you look into any great programmer inside, by great programmer I'm saying like some superstar coder which is inside, you will see like, okay, he is a superstar coder. Just go there and look into his code. Could you be able to understand what he has written? It was really hard. When you can always see that issue there, the superstar coder will always write the code which has never been understandable to everyone. Okay, this is the problem in the industry. Okay, so they want each and everything to be given just like that. They just want to give them, okay, if I'm going to give it now, you just don't think, keep on writing, never think. But to be frank, programming is more about thinking rather than writing. Because you know that, right? Obviously there are libraries, and apart from libraries you have loops, conditions, variables, and then the readability is the main factor. Yeah, because you are right, readability is the main factor on anything else. And I'm seeing this thing across the industry, like they don't care if it is readable, they just want the delivery to be so fast. What will happen after some day? These things are called something called technical debt. So, this is a term which has been used by the software artisans industry. They call that as technical debt. It is nothing like, it is perfectly been working, and it perfectly provides the answer what it was been doing earlier. Only thing is, I don't understand what it was actually doing. I need some time to take it understand. And then a program should be like a typical masala movie. It should not be like some Interstellar or something. So you need to put so much of effort, because in Interstellar you are just decoding only one factor. Here there are going to be thousands of functions, each and everything. If you are going to keep on decoding again and again and again, then we are wasting so much of time in reading those stuff. But already we are going to put some effort on implementing our own logic, and then if we are going to waste some time on reading their existing code, then putting into it, then we are really need to reconsider what we are doing. That is the idea. Yeah. And then functional programming helps you, because whenever the variable has been given, the variable is never going to be changed. So it is total immutable, total side effect free. And then you can, only thing you need to consider is name it properly. Okay. Instead of multiply by 2, if you would have made that as a, it doesn't make any sense. Always mention docstring in a function for others. Okay, so I am against this docstring, because the docstring is something which can be given to an end user, like API, whenever if you are all other stuff. But apart from that, your code itself should say what it is doing. It was hard. It was never easy. It was really hard. But you should start thinking about that rather than writing and typing all the code in docstring. You should ensure like, okay, fine. I am going to think for naming this variable. I am going to think for naming this method. I am going to think for naming this package. So this particular thing, you don't need docstring, because no one reads docstring. Will you think that, do you read docstring or do you read code? We will always read code first. Only if it doesn't understand, it was very hard, people will go there and read docstring, because these are all issues actually. As a programmers, we see that these are all typical issues. Yeah, docstring is obviously fine. I'm not saying like not do that at all. Code itself should be readable. Docstring, yeah, you can do it. Okay, so now you have understood, right? Content or the reason why each and everyone are talking about functional programming, why each and everyone like going behind functional programming, regardless they are not functional language. Java is never a functional language. Now they are in Java. They started saying like we support functional programming. Java is totally an object oriented. They support functional programming. And then Scala by default it was functional programming, but it still supports object oriented. That's a different case. Clojure, which is a Lisp dialect, it was totally a functional programming language. That is the same thing with Haskell. It was totally a functional programming. But even though if it is functional programming or something else, you can still write bad code by not naming it properly. But if you are going to have functional programming, only issue you need to consider is name it properly. All the other things will fall as it is. Most of it's as it is, but still you need to have an architecture. That is a different thing. Yeah. So yeah, allow us, you can read that, right? Whatever we have seen, Elm is, yeah, that's right. Elm is also a function. Elm is functional programming, but brackets of Lisp are very painful to read. Yes, brackets of Lisp are very painful to read only if you are going to write 100 code in only one particular line. Okay, start thinking in only one liners so that you will have n number of functions. You will have 1,000 different functions. Just split the domain and then you will see all the functions whatever you are doing might be like one line. And yeah, I think it will take time actually. Bad about it, but you should try Clojure. Lisp, Clojure is Lisp dialect, and then it runs on JVM, and then it is getting popular. For at least last 20 years, each and everyone say Clojure is the future, but Python is the one going to getting stronger each and every day. Okay. So obviously Python has been the talk of town now. If you want to have Lisp, I would suggest to go for Clojure and going with Lisp because it works on the JVM environment, and then it has all the other things around that. Okay, so easier to understand, focusing on the problem and facilitate parallelism. Facilitate, I think focus on the problem and the easier to understand, you all understand, right? You all seen that in the previous slide itself, and then sure, most of you might have agreed on that because we are just focusing on the problem which needs to be written. We are not reading the code anymore. We can what is Haskell and ELM. Haskell is a programming language. That is the case with ELM. ELM is for UI, I guess. Probably. Fine. The other thing is facilitate parallelism. That is one great thing. So people will say like, okay, fine. If I am going to write code, how can I do optimization? How can I do optimization? How can I do optimization? The default, you can do optimization whenever, if each and every function within are performing only one task, you can create n number of threads and then you can keep on calling it. So the parallelism is available for you without any issue. So that is the main that is also one of the main reason people are going towards functional. So they want to have 1 million records to be updated. If they want to do certain big million records or billion records and handling thousands of records, thousands of requests in one particular millisecond kind of. So whenever if you are going to do this kind of thing, you need to have a strong enough concept in multi-threading. Many of you understand multi-threading? How many of you used multi? Good. Okay, so multi-threading is a concept which like normally you would be calling only one method, right? Okay, so you think that at a time I'm calling 5 methods and then I'm 5. That is as of now, we will see that multi-threading somewhat later in reactive programming. So the parallelism is going to be easy here. The reason is the main problem in multi-threading is deadlock. How many of you heard of deadlock? No, paid is, don't worry about paid actually. Paid is sequential. Is some okay, like that. You know Linus Torvalds, right? Linus Torvalds. I'm pronouncing that. Yeah, Linus Torvalds is the so-called inventor of Linux, and almost 100% of supercomputers runs on Linux. Almost Android is running on Linux, and then what's that? MacBook has that so-called Linux flavor. Also, AI it has it, and all the things. But he hasn't got one single money for that. He's still working, and then he does have getting some money. That is a different thing. But he's not like a Steve Jobs or he's not like a Elon Musk or something. But he do a typical programming each and every day where he do and then doing. They have something called GPL license. If you look into license for Linux, it would be like GPL v2. So, what GPL will do is you are supposed to use the source code whatever you want, however you think. But if you want to distribute it to someone, you need to distribute it with source code. Okay, that is what GPL provides you. It is a different case with all other but GPL provides you. So he has been asked actually, like, if you would have got some different license there or a different thing there, you would have become some billionaire and a billionaire club and all this stuff. But still, why you are you regret it? He said actually absolutely not, because that is not his cup of tea. If you want to be a programmer, that is a different case, obviously. And then we will go other question. Okay, deadlock is pain in database flow. Okay, and then deadlock, normally how it happens was someone is waiting for something and another one is waiting for other one. So that is mostly deadlock, which means that data has been shared. Both of them are working only on single data, and then that is the reason deadlock is normally happening. And then unfortunately, functional programming doesn't have shared data concept. It has only, okay, so all the variables whatever going inside is never. So the eligibility for that is it can be easily multi-threadable. Parallelism is binded by default. So that is one of the main reason actually, because it was hard for us to write multi-threaded programs either in Python or something else. If you want to go for multi-threading, if you want to make it so fast, extremely fast, all you need to do is you need to make as much functional as possible in your code. There is, yeah, still there is a problem actually. Like for example, whenever consider like a ticket booking system for a theater. So when do you want to apply a deadlock? When do you want to apply a lock to it? Once he has made the payment or once he has selected the seat? You need to find out that exact edge. Anyway, you need to lock it because it's a shared resource. I totally agree with that. But where is the question? So the where needs to be as long as possible. So other things needs to be parallelism. But once that particular thing is going to be like submitting the payment, then it needs to lock it, and then mostly it will be handled by that. Deadlock is difficult to identify. That's right. Yeah, deadlock is difficult to identify. That's why we are asking you to start going with functional approach. Then, yeah, that will always enable things. Support mutual exclusion. The process is totally different. Okay, the mutual exclusion, deadlock are all problems of thread. Functional programming is functions which will do one good thing, which is like you'll never have any side effects, which means it will never get for any other data apart from what is being given as an, and then it will work. How do you work with a linked list without sharing? Okay, so this is a good question. How do you work with a linked list without sharing? Okay, I thought you are talking about something called linked blocking queue, linked list you are saying. Okay, so how many of you heard this concept called messaging bus? Okay, so whenever if you want to do certain things like uh, the sharing concept, and I want to do it sequentially and do all the stuff, even in Amazon, Flipkart, or whatever big system you are doing, the major things, the things which are going to be longer would be put into the bus, because bus will travel like sequentially, and whoever get it will just process it. And then I'm sure most people from ML or data processing might always be there with the queues, right? You'll be using queues either from Kafka or some other stuff. That is the same case there. Yeah, that's right. Also, are you including OOP in functional programming? I think that is a different concept. I'm not including OOP in functional programming, totally into functional programming. So can you please mention like what I have mentioned? Also, yeah, as I said, the way we write the program, that is what difference is. When polymorphism is a concept in OOP which can be applied very well, but that is the case in functional programming also has that potential, because polymorphism is a great thing. Okay, yeah, we will. I think we need to go. We are almost getting delayed. Let me. We will try it. Okay, so Python and functional programming. So applying functional programming is very hard. Okay, so that is the main reason actually. You can start thinking in that aspect, but very soon you will find like, okay, fine, why I have done something wrong and all this stuff. Why I have so much of code? Why I couldn't be able to find anything else? There is a possibility you might get. It's just a possibility. If you are good enough, you can able to crack it. That's a different case. And then lambda keyword. Okay, whenever if you are going to create a function as a separate variable, you need something called a lambda keyword. And then by default, functional programming, Python is, as I said earlier, Python. The purpose of Python is whomever coming there in the market, they want them to adapt that particular language. Either it is always mutual. Okay, if I'm going to create a library, I want to do it in Python. I want to give it for Python as well. Java, Python, I want to do it only these two, and also JavaScript. And that is the reason they have keep on implementing things, because they thought like, okay, fine, we have a language, and then this language is going to be the next feature. We are sure about that. How can we able to improve the language by adapting whatever is coming later? We saw that functional programming paradigm is good, and then they saw lambda calculus has a huge potential towards, and then they said, okay, fine, we will introduce lambda into it. They have introduced it, and then they have kept it. But since it was not a functional programming language, Python is never a functional programming. They said uh, prefer using def, which is function. Okay, prefer using def instead of lambda for assigning variable. For example, in this case, why there is, so in this thing which is can drive, if I'm going to say like something, this will absolutely work fine. It will be pausing as well. But the problem is Python doesn't support it. Python will say like, okay, fine, as per PEP XXX, you are not supposed to assign a lambda expression, use a def. So they themselves are not clear. They thought like we need to have so-called def in order. Lambda is good because lambda is going to support only one line. Okay, going to see so much in lambda. Just for your information, you need to do whatever your business is required. But still, Python has been doing things for the sake of, okay, fine, functional programming. So for the sake, we will call lambda as per the requirement of functional lambda calculus. You are supposed to assign the lambda keyword, and then you need to pass it for abstraction and move it a class. You should not use variables. That is a different case. But Python has its own thing. We should think in a way like, what is the better thing I can able to get out of functional programming, rather than thinking of, okay, I need to be mutable, so I need to call a read only, or I need to do a decorator, or I need to way like whenever someone is trying to change it, I don't want to allow them, I want to raise the exception. You don't have to do anything like that. One thing you need to do is you need to write proper test case. That is one thing. And then the second thing is, if just use the common sense instead of thinking like, okay, fine, Python has said that, and okay, I believe def has more meaningful, just go and use for the def. I have my own opinion on using lambda. That is a different case though. And then also you can see that in the FB documentation, which is being given by the Python people who have written that, he will imitate the users to go with a loop rather than using reduce, because he believed that understanding reduce is hard. Yeah, understanding reduce is hard for the people who are coming first. It is going to be hard. Once people are accustomed with that, they will feel, oh, okay, yeah, fine, we can. So that is the king thing actually. So we don't. There are, these are all the constraints actually with Python. But the concept of class, attribute, data, and function is OOP. And functional programming has only function, not data. No, it has data as well. You are supposed to pass data. Because of data is not, therefore there is no locking point. No, it is like the state actually. Functional programming supports parallelism. Object oriented doesn't support parallelism. That is the one thing I would like to say. So the idea there is, these variables, it will use a state level variable, right? Object oriented, or even non-functional programming language. variable which is declared on top globally, then they can. Is there an advantage of using lambda over def? Nothing actually. It's totally up to you. Def, one thing is lambda will supports only one expression. Def will support multiple. And then reduce over loop. The reduce over loop is meant like for Pythonicity, which means that they thought reduce will never make sense for most people. Hari, so the idea there is, so whenever if you are going to have a multi-threaded thing, even if you are going to do that in Python, and there are stream way that you can use it. Only thing is you need to ensure same data has never been invoked parallelly, because it will cause raising problems. It will cause the deadlock as well. That is a possibility there. Doesn't have to do anything with object-oriented or scripted language or language. The reason why I said function programming languages, functional programming language has data. Only thing is the data is sent as an input there, and then it has been processed as an output. It will never look for an input which is outside the scope of the function. That is the reason I said parallelism. So, and then we don't have so much developers. So that is the reason I am trying to do that. We want so much developers in function. So it is never an advantage. It is just like a use case. And people are so much, but that global variable is there. In functional programming, we are not supposed to have global variable. If we are, you can do that actually. Even if you are going to have global variable, that is totally fine. But whenever if you are going to use global variable, ensure that whenever there is a possibility that you want to go multi-threaded, you are causing yourself pain. You can do that. You can do with like having lock and then putting all the stuff and do all the other things. But a configuration file is totally fine, because you see read-only things are never going to be an issue. Even you can have global variable which is read-only, that is never. But if it has a write operation associated with that, then for example, consider the producer-consumer problem. Producer-consumer ticket thing, yeah. So that is that. Okay, lambda. Okay, lambda is what we are going to see now. Who has written this? Okay. Okay, so the entirety of how the computation needs to be done has been proposed by Alonso Churches. Use lambda calculus. By using lambda calculus, he not only just asks you to create one lambda function, he asks you to create n number of lambda function and then orchestrate towards it. Okay, so that is what the intention of our Alonso Church. Then Python is the only language which has a perfect definition of lambda. Only one expression is allowed. That is never the case with any other language. Even Clojure supports multiple, which is a Lisp dialect, and Java supports multiple. All the things supports multiple. Python is the only one to come up with like, okay, if you are going to use lambda, you need to support only one expression. Make that expression meaningful is what they want. And then they have done it really well of utilizing these things. What we are going to do is we are just going to have a small example on lambda. Okay, so we'll see. Is that we will do a typical thing: a plus b whole square equal to a square plus b square plus 2ab, and a plus, sorry, this is a minus b whole square. Forgot that. Okay, okay, a minus b whole square equal to a square plus b square minus 2ab. So we are going to do this with lambda calculus. Let me create a package, and then let me create a script. Okay, I'll let me create a script and then I'll go full screen. Okay, let me go into Zen mode. Some of you might have known Zen mode, right? So you view presentation mode and Zen mode. I have this shortcut assigned, so I could able to go there directly. Okay. So in this thing, I just want to have a plus b whole square, right? So I will create a function. a plus b whole square. You can have a better name as well. Unfortunately, I couldn't able to think of anything. That's the reason I'm saying it like this. Okay, so what is the case? Normally you would be saying like return, would be saying like a into a is a square plus b, which is b square, plus then 2ab, right? 2 into okay, as usual, we don't want to write main method. Yeah, we can do main method, but we'll write test at least for this. Once we are going into reactive Rx, we will go for main method for fastening things. Okay, self dot assert equal, then a plus b whole square 1 comma 2. It should be equal to 1 plus 2 is 3, 3 square is 9. And then let me put an import alt enter. What went wrong? Control E. Oh. Control E is a shortcut to whatever going within the use these editable files. Like it is. This is the problem with this. Regardless, however they are doing, they will always come back for some small sorry, control shift F10, right? Control shift 10. Okay, so a plus b whole square has been passed, and which is 1 comma 2, which is a b, and then the response is 9. This is totally fine. Oh, okay, yeah, fine. Yeah, we have done it. Okay, yeah, we don't need semicolon. Sorry. Programming across multiple languages, so these issues. But fortunately, Python is good enough now in 3. It will allow me to do that. Good. And thanks for noting it. Okay, so how can we make it more functional? We can create lambda, right? We can create lambda, call that as a square of this a square. We call square of a, then square of b, then 2ab. Okay, so the idea there is we are just converting the same thing, whatever we have already known. We are just moving that into lambda input and input. So if the reason why it is this input and input is a into a is always going to be working fine. But the idea of functional programming and the lambda calculus is you need to go to the deepest level of abstraction. You need to go to the deepest level of abstraction, however possible. So and then 2ab is there, and then we will do for the what is that? Yeah, a minus b whole square. So I'm going to duplicate it. Select this all this stuff and add a control D. It will duplicate the line. Then here I have something called a minus b whole square Only thing is a square plus b square minus 2ab. Then I will lambda ab. Yeah, it is possible. It's just function, right? Even you can, it is just like you are removing this entire thing totally. That's totally possible. We'll do it. And then we will write a test case for this. That is the main thing for us. We don't want to have each and every test case, so we will write it here. Okay, so what could be the output? 1 plus 1 minus 2 minus 1 square is 1. So I'll add a control shift F10 so that it will run both the test case. Both of them has been passed. Okay, so we have this. We could see that there is one more thing which we can do a refactor, which is 2ab, right? So we will write another thing. 2ab a comma b. And then let me remove this. Then let me run the previous 2 test cases. It said error. Let's see what went wrong. What went wrong? Any idea? I haven't passed any parameters. Yeah, good. Okay, so now it has been passed. And then square 2ab, we have so much of stuff. And then we want to move this one as lambda as well. Also, okay, we will move like this and then we'll do it. Okay, so we have done a proper functional programming language. There is nothing called functions. There are, it looks like variables actually with the lambda, and then each and everything are just one-liners. And then I think we can do some more refactoring as well, I guess, which is squares of. Okay, squares of. That might be a better sense. Let's see whether. I am not a great fan of def because I'm just looking for as much possibilities to write things in one line. Control Alt L, which will format your file. Go to format code. We have here. No, it has a Control Alt L, and then we'll run. It makes it. So if you look here, we have all the things are typically you can do all the things in a single thing. Like Tapti said, lambda a b, a into a, b into b, 2ab. You know that even though if it is a single thing, we need to make it as much expressive as possible, whatever the calculations which we are doing. So only if we are making it more expressive, we are really getting the benefit out of utilizing the functional programming. So you can change all the things into def. That is never a problem. Okay, so it's not like you need to always have like You can convert all these things into def as well. I don't have any issues, but I felt having things in a single line appears so better than def. Then you know each and every function. Please share updated Excel after session. What Excel? Okay, it's not for me then. Okay, good. So any questions in Lambda and the utilization of things? Okay, I will share the code, don't worry. Okay, so the idea there is, any questions on Lambda which you would like to have or which you would like to discuss? I understand that it was, just give me a minute, I'll take. Okay, can we have a 5-minute break? Actually, I guess I can just have a tea and I'll come back. Yes, yeah, thank you. Okay, can we start? Yeah, I think what are the questions we have? Is there an advantage over function stack that gets created if you use different system? Both of them, I think they are similar. I have tried on some code actually, but I haven't tested on million data or something. But for me, it was similar. And then, yeah, I think Hari is right actually. The advantage is actually reading. Actually, it doesn't have to do anything with performance. Performance, you can always get it. Only reading line is important. That is what the core is. And then if you want to improve performance, it is also possible that we can do that as well by composing or doing certain patches. But I believe the advantages obviously of functional programming is to have more functions, right? You loved COBOL. That's a great thing. Yeah. Try assembly. That is much better than that. Yeah. You can use the extension called write the best P. You can use the extension called sonarlint in PyCharm and write the best P8 standard code. Yeah, that's fine. And then you can change this lambda to def. Actually, it's not a big thing. Do that. Okay, so we will go for the next thing. Okay, so the next thing is map actually, which we have been using for a very long time. Some of you might have already used it. We are, as we said earlier, it is just like applying a function on each and every value of whatever been passed. So predominantly our Python just supports only for array of items, never supports something like single function or something. The map does support only if you have an iterator associated with that. So these iterators are typically it would be lists, and then all the type of iterators it does support, which has implemented something called has next, so that each and every value would be retrieved with has next, and then it will be applied, and then it will be given back. So any questions? Actually, looks like someone is talking. Request, please do not overwrite code. Please kindly write down which will help in reference. Okay, I don't understand that. Fine. So the idea is it's never overwriting. Okay, so the idea of any code, whatever we have been doing, is identifying abstractions. That is the core thing for functional programming. There should not be any single duplication. So if there is a duplication, we need to address it. All the code, if you can see that from the top to bottom, doesn't have something called, we try to find some duplication and try to put it into a abstraction there. So the concept relies on abstraction. Sujata, do you like to speak anything? Sujata Roy. Good. Okay, so how do we do it in Python? So we have this data. Okay, so I have this data which is from some JSON file. We are going to work on that thing based on these data. So we have this JSON file which you just copy and put it inside, and then we will try to get the IDs of the users. We will start with the typical way how to do it of getting the IDs of user, and then once we completed the typical way, we will use the map based stuff. So that's that way we could able to see, okay, when what we are trying to achieve. Let me open the code. So let me copy some shared thing. Okay. Okay, so I have created some mock data here, so which will give me some value inside. I just need to identify, I need to get all the IDs there. Okay, so the IDs will be like 1 to, it will be just like numbers 1 to 25. Go to full screen. Okay, so assuming that the users is the input which we are receiving, where typically there is a old school way, which is like having an array, then is having a for loop, as being like this, and then just appending that ID, so called. Okay, so this is the typical way which most of Python, typical Python thing we would have used. Okay, so let me get the results. Okay, let's see whether it is importing. Okay, see whether it is importing. Okay, let me convert to the list. I'm sure it is going to give a list, but for the sake I'm converting. Okay, I will do the conversion later. Cells is not none results, and then what else we can do? We can just print it down. As of now, we'll just print it down. It needs to just print the IDs. It should not print any other thing. Apart from that, we'll just write a Control Shift F10. Okay, so we have received all the data. So there are good things actually. Whenever if we print out, we can add assertions. Self dot assert equal results on this. Okay, so we have done a test case, and then we want that to return just the IDs. Okay, so we know that it was from 1 to 25. Then we Control Alt left arrow. Okay. So using that, you can navigate here and there, or Control E to cross as well. So this is a typical way, right? This is how we used to do this imperative style, actually having a variable, and then we are appending the variable, updating a variable, and then doing it. So the same thing can be written something with map like this. Most people would have known map is a keyword followed by a function, which function you would like to do. So the function can be something like we will call that as lambda, and then we will call that as user. Then we will call that as user of id, and then we will call that as users. Okay, for the sake we rename this. Okay. Again and again id, so not require get ids from list of users. So we will do a refactor, that is shift F6 or right click, refactor, rename. The proper name is something which is a myth actually. Okay, so you will always there will always be an option to refactor things. Either it can be a small thing which you might believe. If the previous name doesn't imply what it was doing, if the new name which you are thinking might make more impact, always go for it. Okay, lambda user of user ID. Then I don't like this thing, so I will either have a lambda here. If possible, you can have that as a lambda, or you can have it as def. Idea is to have abstraction. Okay, and then let me run the test case. Let's see, it's failing, but it is printing. It is printing something like map object. Okay. That is the problem with Python's map library. By default, it will not give you as a list. Rather, it will try to give you something of any object. So how we can fix this is, whenever if you are going to get this so-called value, convert that as list by using. Okay, and then rerun this test. It will get passed. So what it will do is it will just have some values called object.list. Let me go there and let me do some insights about it. So if you go into map, it is just another typical class, and then it will have a iterator. It will have a next, view, and all this stuff as a typical object, which has typical functional object, which has the return type is also going to be a single object which it is going to return. And then within that single object, if you want to retrieve anything else, you need to make sure to have like you need to start doing like dot has next and then do it, dot has next, get next, another pain. So that is the reason we are just having it as a list. Okay, that is the idea behind it. Some of you have asked this question, right? Iterators and decorators. We will also try to answer that question in upcoming sessions. As of now, just think that map user IDs make better sense. So it will look cool. Actually, it's nothing wrong and all that stuff. Also, Python has another option. Okay, so how many of you used? There is one more option. You can apply this map internally with for loop itself. So there is one thing which Python has been provided by very default. So instead of this thing, you can have something like for user in users. Okay, this is typical for statement. Nothing good about that. Only difference is I'm just going to add these two square brackets, and then before this for loop, I'm just going to add one condition: user of this, or I think I can also compare this one, right? I can just call that one. Let me write this first and then let me call it again. Control F5. It's passed. It is working perfectly fine. And then let me run this again by using Lambda inside. Okay, so it was not working, which means I think I need to call it explicitly. It looks like. I need to call a function, whatever map function which you want. You can always call it behind the for. it will behave as if it is. And then those who doesn't like lambda, always you can use if. Earlier I have seen that it was asking me to convert this one. I don't know why it stopped doing that. Okay, so these are all the three types actually: map, and then what's that? Yeah, map, and then a typical imperative way, and then using map before for, which means you can call the function whatever you want, and then it will make use of it. You look into the chat. Please share this project with them. Yes, we will be sharing. Don't worry. Yeah. Because please do not overwrite the code. Kindly write down. It will help in reference. We will be. I forgot that. Okay. Yes. Let me do. The good thing about IntelliJ is it will have all the things in history, even though it will be there similar like what it has been providing. It will still have all the things. Okay, so just added that. Fine. As list comprehension, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay, please tell again Control Alt. Control Alt left arrow, which will go to the previous place wherever I am. You see that 4 arrows, right? Up, down, left, and thing. Control Alt left arrow will go previous thing. Control Alt right arrow will go there. Okay, yeah, fine. Yeah, we will do that. No. Now, 3 more minutes. I think we have almost covered what I'm supposed to, and then I guess most of you has been aware of most things. This is the case I would have, after functional programming, I would have talked to Reactive. Please be aware, actually, it's not for one, it's for everyone. We will do it. Anyway, good. Let's go back to our presentation. That's where most of the things lies. The get names are marked with prefix Mr. on my. What is this? Okay, I think we need to find out the employee gender. So I think we are running out of time. I think skip this. Most of them I know how to do map. Take this as an exercise from me. Okay, just try that. Good. We will go for filter. Okay, filter is by looking into this diagram, you can able to see that we are filtering certain elements. Then I have made this diagram very bad. I am supposed to have either 2, 3, 5. Unfortunately, it would with 6, 8, 10. Sorry for that. Okay, I will correct it. Sorry for last minute inconvenience. Okay, so it will filter certain aspects. In this case, it is greater than. What's that? Okay, I think it needs to be 2, 3, 5. It doesn't make any sense. Okay, so the idea there is to filter things. Okay, so I don't want to do anything now. Idea there is to filter anything. If you believe that when this could be applicable, like whenever if you want to do filter, so you will be doing a for loop, and then if you do an if condition, and then within that if condition you will say like, okay, fine, whenever this is changing, and then do it. If it is been not changing, don't do it. Okay, so that is what you might be typically doing, right? For example, in this case, we will have an example called get the users of get UMA users, get women users. Yeah, is that a proper word? Yeah, I think it's okay word. Let us write that. Query users based on gender. Okay. So let me go back to the our code. This is where we'll have anything. Okay, so the idea is we want to, I need to go full screen. That is the first idea. Get, okay, so I can have get mail users of users. And then in a typical way, how we do is we'll just have these things, right, which is typical way is results equal to, and then doing it, which I'm sure most people would have already known better. I don't want to do it again and again for you, and then you will feel like he keeps on doing the basics again and again. So we will go for the next version. Okay? We will go for the for user. Okay? Do you want to have the default version? Time will be a little complex to filter. No, the idea is filter actually. Okay, so don't worry about what functionality it is. The idea is to have a condition again. That is the thing. Okay, let me do with the results itself, because that's how things will really look actually good comparing to any other thing. Because by default, whenever if we are going to work on something which we need to come up from basics, only if we have been taught with basics, everyone will say, okay, fine, this makes really sense. Yeah, right. User in users, then if user of idea, what is that called? User of, let me go there. Control E. User of gender is female. Of gender female. Use user. Okay. Results. So this is the typical way which we have been doing, which we used to do. Then, oh, sorry, get male users. And I think we don't want to have this. We'll have something like users of gender, then gender. Right? And then we will call this one inside here. Right. We are good. Test. Okay, so the first thing is we need to assign the variable result equal to only, what is that name called? Let me import it. Let me import this one as well. Okay, so okay, we will, as of now, we will say like at least greater than 1 or something like that. Sorry, self dot assert greater than, I just need count, right? So only if I have this so-called count, it will get some other value. So I will say like users equal to len of results. And also what I'll do is I'll print the results. So greater than A, B. A should be greater than B. Okay. These total users should be greater than 1. We couldn't able to find anything, so we don't have a proper exact answer there, so we will just go with that and let's see whether how it runs. Okay, so we got it. How many is length? Just okay, so let me have assert equals. Okay, so get users of gender, which is a default version which we have done, and we are going to have another version. This is imperative, and then we are going to go for our filter style. So filter, same thing. Only thing is, sorry, filter, and then we need to just give a function. I'm just going to say lambda the user of users. Let's see whether it is going to pass or not. It has failed because the run type has no len. That is one thing. Because it has also failed, I have never put return. Okay. And then one more thing I need to do is I just need to convert into to list actually, because these functional programming are not sophisticated things for stuff. So now you can see total users we have received as 7. Let me do chat. Is PyCharm free? PyCharm community edition is free. Okay. So the other thing is we can see that now it has been very simple. It has arrived in filter. Now this gender, if you want, you can move that as gender, or else let it be as it is. And then we will do one more thing with this so-called filter. So all we have done is typical imperative and then typical filter. Now there is one more thing which you can able to do with the help of something which we used to do it earlier, right? Okay, so we will have something, our for loop, typical for loop, which we normally used to have, for user in users, and you want to assign this guy into a variable. So to assign it or to return something else, you need to just put the same thing. Normally you will put a function before that, right? In that case, and then we will add a square bracket. So you don't have to do that. You just put the variable which you would like to have. Like in this case, I'm just going to call him as user itself, user for user and users, and then followed by, we just need to put a condition for which you need to do certain things on. So I'll say like if user of gender equal to there. Right. So you can see that the difference between whenever if we are using map, we have used square bracket. Now it's different. Let's run it first. It's working or not? It's okay. So this is the typical thing in Python. I don't understand actually, but they said that it was Pythomatic. I thought, okay, fine. I just thought like I need to say this is the same way for most of you would have already been doing it about list comprehensive. Please share code folder post session with the upgrade is what for writing before. Yeah, we are going to share this. Don't think that I'm just taking everything. Okay, so filter has been completed. Next thing is I think I have all these three versions. Okay, so I think it will have next thing is reduce, which is the cool feature actually, which is the aggregative way of doing things. So aggregation of whatever option which we are doing, it will have a function which will get two parameters. Earlier in filter or map, you will see like it is just getting one parameter, which is the current value, which is nothing but iterating within the loop itself. But here in reduce, it is going to have two parameters. One is the accumulator, and the another thing is the current value. So, and then adding the accumulator and current value, you need to pass one more parameter, which is the initial value. So that is one more thing. Reduce is used for like if you have n number of things, if you want to just give one particular dashboard or something, or if you would like to give one answer based on comprehensive list, you can always use good example. And also I would like to say one more thing, which is you need to compose these actions actually. So it's not like map is going to work on separately, filter is going to work on separately, reduce is going to work on separately. You just need to combine these functions here and there, only then get the actual benefit of writing a code. There, let me go for chat or any. Could you please show filter definition slide? Yeah, I'll be sharing the slides. Don't worry that. Is that okay? Why round bracket instead of square? Unfortunately, these kind of questions are Python specific. Uh, the square bracket is meant for map, round bracket is meant for filter. So if we have a if condition there, we need to have this round bracket. If we have a square bracket, means we have a map. These all you see, these are all how to say, these are all programming construct actually. It doesn't have to do anything with library as well. This is the way Python also programming it. Whom do you think they are working there? They are the programmers like you and me. Okay, fine, we will say like, okay, fine, we have a reason for writing a square bracket, we reason for writing as such. I honestly doesn't make sense. Rather than that, they can just put the filter, or they can have some more better way rather than using of if. That's so bad. Yeah. Okay, is that fine, Ujwal? Can I move or? Yeah, got it. Right. Yeah. So the idea of filter is actually filtering the values. These kind of things will always like be, you might need to remove unwanted things, right? We might have n number of data, x number of data, millions of records which you want, and then you want to remove half of it, remove unwanted stuff. So in those kind of thing, always go for filter. The map is converting form from one form to other. It used to be this form, and I'm going to convert it to this, so that I can able to read. And then you chain these things, map, filter, and then finally reduce. Reduce is a final aggregation operator, which you should not use in between. You should use it finally. But map, filter are something which you can keep on chaining, and then you can keep on doing it. The problem there is but the problem there is uh, Python doesn't have map, like map and filter forming as a chain. Instead of that, it has something like call that inside, and then that is the problem with Python. So RX solves that in a differently. Also, we can move it into a different way and solve it as well. But RX solves it differently. We will see that they also have map, filter, and ready. See what are the issues with this, and then we will go for RX and then. Okay, so this is what we are going to see now, which is reduce. We are going to into example. So find the total salaries of users. Okay, so we will just go there. First, let me first open the file, which is users. They have salary, right? Each and everyone has salary. So the question is, now try to find total salary of all these people. Is what the question is. Let me write. Okay. Total salaries for, then typically we will go with our old way, result equal to 0, then a for loop, user in users, sorry, forget this bracket thing, across languages will come like this. Okay, fine, user and users, and then add result equal to, we just need user of, what is that thing called, salary, then we will call a return result. Okay, so this is good because it's just an aggregation, we don't want to convert anything here. Alt insert, generate a test. Go for asset greater than A greater than B. Okay, so we will have like control V, total cell response. I'm sure it is going to be more than 1000. Okay, fine. Okay, so we are trying to find the total salaries, and then we are assuming that it is going to be greater than 1000, and let's see. And also I think instead of that, I want to print actually the total salary as well, so that it will help me to rewrite the test case better. Control Alt V, okay, create a variable. Control Alt V, or right click and refactor and create variable. Okay, and then add a print this one, and then we'll use for Control Shift F10. It's passing, and then what is that number? It's 2206427. So I will write one more assert statement. This is how you need to start actually working on it. Whenever if you are going to work on any project, actually you might not know actually, so for certain stuff what it was. Is the reason why I'm giving this number directly is it is mock data, because I have total control over it. So no one is going to change this. But it wouldn't be the case if you are trying to get it from database or somewhere. Instead of that, you just get some mock data, just put it inside. Either put it within the Python file itself, or put it as a JSON and read it, and then we will do like reading that tomorrow. But the idea behind that is you need to write tests in order to do better. So the first question, and then better code. So I will please tell again generate test per function. Okay, you don't have to worry so much on keys. Right click, generate test. Okay, or even if you see right click here generate, they have specified a key called alt insert. So and then it is also, everything is configurable. Okay, so you don't have to worry so much about, okay, I want only, why should I need to go there, file, settings. The only work for JetBrains is to create wonderful environments for us. Search for generate. They have generate. We have. So yeah, generate keyword. Okay. So by default, the generate keyword is alt insert. So you want, you can change the shortcut here as well. Is having two asserts is such a best practice for testing. Okay, so whatever provides value is a best practice. whatever provides the value for business is a best practice. Having as many assets is definitely a best practice. So only thing is there is a perspective. Whenever if you are going to write one test should always have only one asset, because which means the test is looking for only one particular thing, which the reason people would have say that is, if suppose that particular feature has been removed, we can just happily remove one test totally, rather than removing one statement within a test. So that is the case actually for best practice. But normally these all supposed to be, for example, we want to check null, right? We want to check null before getting count. So you can have like assert is not null, and then you can have the count. So that is fine. But typically it should be like what the value of the test is going to provide. The value should be determined by the user story. I'm sure most people would have known what the user story and all the stuff, right, from a typical thing, or requirement. Okay, so based on the requirement you need to create test, and then this is the there are some thing to doing EDA. We should get this documented. Yeah, good. There is a concept called test driven design. Is happening for very long, but it was hard actually. Even I'm not practicing it. I am practicing it, but not in Python, but I used to practice it. Which will determine, like, to write clean code, you need to start writing with test. Only then you will know, like, okay, fine, what are all the areas I can test, and then I can able to improve on that. Okay. So total salaries for imperative. Okay, I will do for reduce, so that we will do things. We do here return, because last time I have not put on return. Reduce, and then reduce is going to have a lambda, which will have two parameters. One is accumulator, then another thing is current value, and then inside we just want to have the current value, which is nothing but the user. So what we will be doing is we will be saying like accumulator plus current value. Current value is nothing but user actually. I think put user, right? Yeah, user make much sense. User of salary. So reduce as one parameter, and the second parameter is the values, which is nothing but users. Then also reduce requires some import. Okay. So alt enter. Why it was from func tools port reduce. Okay, I forgot to make it full screen. Accumulator uses salary users, and then I need to give a default value. Default value is 0. So the same thing. Okay, so the same thing. Okay, salary accumulator, and then users 0, and then let's see whether our test is going to be passing or not. Okay, fortunately our test passed. That's a good thing, and we have almost done it, right? Almost done it. There is one more thing actually, which is called partial. Is PowerPoint. Are we on time, or we are missing? Can we go for some time, or?
Yeah. Actually, we are almost on time, so you can take it at 5 minutes.
Oh, okay. No, no. We will. If it is 5-7 minutes, I will be happy to answer questions. We will take the remaining. Yeah, we will take the remaining thing as next session. It's always there. So, any other questions related with FP, or I think FP we are going to discuss about next 3 sessions as well. So, any other questions if you want, whatever we have done. Please go back to the reduce part. Yes, we are going. Yes, Pawan, actually just 5 minutes, we will close it. Okay, I just thought to get your questions if you have. Can you show the reduce example with def? Okay. salary accumulator make sense. Get a better name now. So let me have salary accumulator itself for the being, and then we'll have certain things like this, and then we'll do a return statement which will get this, and then let's run this test. Okay, it's passed.